What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the burst rifle, which was recently unvaulted in yesterday's update. As always, if you guys do find this video helpful and informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below letting me know what your favorite assault rifle is right now in Fortnite Chapter 4. So the burst was unvaulted yesterday, and I'm sure when you hear that, a lot of people are going to be super excited, but this is not the first person burst rifle. This is not the striker burst rifle. This is what the game just calls the burst rifle. It's modeled after the FAMAS, and it's a 2-round burst assault rifle. It has very good damage, and it has a decent fire rate. So unlike, similar to the SCAR, this is a third-person bloom-based weapon, and also similar to the SCAR, under ideal conditions, this weapon kills extremely fast. If you hit every shot, and if you hit only headshots, or you hit a lot of headshots, this weapon kills incredibly fast. But with all the bloom-based weapons, I'm sure if you guys have played Fortnite a bunch, you know those ideal conditions aren't happening all the time, and it really comes down to kind of the average performance of the weapon, you know? At its high end, it's very good. If you just get bloomed and you hit none of your shots, it's not very good. And that's just kind of the give and take of all bloom-based weapons in Fortnite. And the bloom on this weapon is very low, especially if you're standing still and you're crouched. It has actually very little. If you're crouched standing still and you have maybe a slight millisecond brief pause between bursts, you have no bloom at all. So if you play this weapon like a turret at really long range fights, it's very good. But also, if you're playing this weapon like a turret, it's very easy for other players using a red eye to punish you. And that's kind of where the give and take with this weapon comes, you know? If you're playing against somebody that just lets you stand there and fry them, it'll be good. But most people aren't going to do that. So I feel like in really long range fights, this weapon really isn't the best choice, even though, you know, that situation I set up, it will actually perform quite well. And this weapon is actually very good at close to medium range, up to 60, 70 meters or so, I want to say, maybe a little less than 70, 50 or 60. It's insane. And you could still strafe in those situations, and it does perform really well. Like the SCAR, this weapon performs best at those kind of medium range engagements. But that's kind of a range where I don't really need a weapon at this point in time, because I'm typically carrying the tactical pistol, especially in zero build. So let's just say 50 meters is mid-range. You know, past that, I have the red eye. Up to that point, I have the tactical pistol, and it's where does this burst rifle really fit in? I don't really think it's that great for a 2-gun loadout. You could kind of combo it well with a shotgun, you know, shotgun into burst, back to shotgun, kind of like we did last season with the Evo Chrome burst rifle. But if you remember back to the Evo Chrome burst rifle, as you did damage to players and as you upgraded the weapon, it started shooting more shots per burst. So you would maybe suffer past the 2-bullet version, but once you got into the 3 and the 4-bullet per burst version of the Evo Chrome burst rifle, that's when it got really good as a shotgun complement weapon, whereas this FAMAS is always stuck in the 2-shot burst. And kind of like I touched on before, if you shotgun somebody and hit a good shot, and then swap to your burst, hip fire, both the shots hit, ideally both hit to the head, and then you swap back to your shotgun, you're probably going to kill them on that shot. But you're also going to have times where you shotgun, swap to the burst, maybe hit only 1 bullet or none of the bullets at all, and then you swap back to the shotgun, and it's you didn't do any damage in that time, and the player using the SMG or the tactical pistol would have gotten more damage in on that time, most likely, because those are much more forgiving weapons. You know, I feel with the burst and the SCAR especially, they're very good under perfect conditions, but those perfect conditions don't really happen that often. And I feel a lot of players kind of fall into the trap of only thinking about those ideal circumstances, where I think it's best to kind of think about the average level of the weapon. You know, the red eye, for example, the average level of that is very good because the bullet goes exactly where you put it. You know what I mean? If your aim is good, it's going to be a consistently good weapon for you. And I feel for a 2-weapon loadout, while the FAMAS could be good under ideal conditions, I would rather have shotgun tactical pistol or shotgun SCAR rather than shotgun burst. You could make it work if you love this weapon. It does kill incredibly fast at certain ranges and in certain fights. You know, if you're 30 meters from the opponent and you don't miss a shot, they're going to go down very quick. Another kind of concern with this weapon, I feel is it has 10 bursts per magazine. And I just found myself always in situations where I needed to reload this weapon. for whatever reason. I don't know why. If there was an augment that reloaded medium ammo weapons faster, like how we have for light ammo weapons, I think my opinion on this weapon would honestly be higher. I'm not really sure why I got in so many situations where like the reload was problematic to me, but I did. But yeah, those are kind of my opinions on the burst. It's an inconsistent weapon, like how the Scar is, and like how pretty much every bloom-based weapon is. And in a game where we have a very consistent option that's very good, I feel like it's not as appealing. Like the red eye is there, and I prefer the red eye personally. If the meta was just like if the meta was Scar, Burst, and then like the MR, I feel like that would be really interesting. But with as it stands right now, I feel like the red eye is just like the clear-cut best choice. I do think the burst is good though. Like it's not a terrible weapon. If you get this weapon off spawn, or you're just in a situation where you have to use it for whatever reason, like your I don't know, your loot is scuffed, or you just came off reboot or whatever, and you got to take what you can get off that player, it is a fine gun. It's not terrible by any means. This isn't a weapon that you're gonna land on and just hate your life like how the Charge SMG was. But I also don't think it's like the best choice ever, and it's not really something that I see myself using much aside to get like gameplay for this video. Unless the red eye gets removed from the game or nerfed at that point, then maybe we'll, reevaluate things. But I just prefer the red eye much just in general. And pretty much whenever there's a first-person assault rifle in the game, I'm probably going to prefer that to the third-person ones, especially as a linear player. It can get very difficult to make those like small adjustments at really long range on linear. If you're a controller player and you play linear, you know what I'm talking about. But the first-person weapons just feel much better for that. And then you can also strafe aim with the first-person weapons because they're perfectly accurate and they don't have bloom. So using your left stick to kind of make those small adjustments, it works very well. And it doesn't negatively impact you. Whereas like with something like the Scar or the Burst Assault Rifle, if you're trying to strafe aim at really long range, that can really mess you up. At like medium range, up to 50 meters or so, that's fine. But when you're in those really long range fights and you need to hit shots, and strafing to like kind of correct your aim also makes your cone of fire wider, making your gun less accurate, I feel like that's just not the best case for a lot of linear players. And I am a linear player. I like playing linear. I'll probably make a video later this week, about the differences between linear and expo and why I prefer linear. But for as it stands right now, I feel like the red eye is just a better choice. For me personally, if you like the FAMAS, it's great. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad weapon by any means. It's just not the best weapon in the game, in my opinion. Like if you catch timing on somebody and you get first shot on them, you have the opportunity to shoot at them first. If I have the red eye in my hands, I feel like 90 times or 99 times out of 100, I'm going to get a decent amount of damage on that opponent, Whereas like with something like the burst rifle or the Scar, the bloom-based weapons, sometimes you might get great damage and then you could just melt that player down and that's fine. But also sometimes you're going to get pitiful damage and then your timing advantage that you had is now gone, and that fight is probably going to take much more time, and it's going to be a lot more risky for you. You're going to probably get third-partied afterwards. But if you just come across somebody and you like, your aim is good and you're able to consistently hit headshots with the red eye, you're going to get a lot of opening damage, and then using the hammers or whatever mobility exists in the game, it's going to be very easy for you to transition that into a kill. And pretty much ever since Zero Build has been out, that has kind of been the meta for Zero Build, especially if there's a first-person rifle in the game. Last chapter, it was a Striker Burst for most of it. This chapter, it's the red eye so far. And, opening tags, mobility into kill is just a very easy, like, rinse and repeat way to get kills. And I feel like it works a lot better with something like the red eye than it does the burst. I feel like also one final thing I want to touch on is this opinion might change also for the team game modes. I think I would still prefer the red eye, but in team game modes, you get a lot more like kind of skirmishy fights, just like getting opening tags on somebody doesn't just immediately seal the deal like it does in solos. And so in those situations, maybe the burst could be good. Like I said, I still prefer the red eye no matter what, but I definitely see some cases for it maybe being a little bit better in alternate or like team game modes than it is in solos, but I'm mostly a solos player. That is going to be it for this video. Those are my thoughts on the burst. It's a solid weapon, but the red eye is just kind of head and shoulders above everything else. It's kind of similar to how the hammer AR was with the Striker Burst. When the Striker Burst was removed, the hammer AR was a great choice and it was fine to use it. But when the AUG was in the game, everybody was using the AUG, I feel like that's kind of the case here. Both the Scar and the Burst Rifle, I think, are good, solid weapons. But the red eye is just kind of head and shoulders above them. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, found it helpful, informative, whatever, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.